You're listening to Bold Hearts, Big Moves, the show for female entrepreneurs who want it all: a thriving business, deep self love, and fulfilling relationships. I'm Erin Anderson, and each week we will dive into how to set stronger boundaries, make empowered choices, and show up in life and business with boldness, authenticity, and heart. Because let's be real, the money you make is directly related to the love that you have for yourself and the strength of your relationships. So if you're ready to lead with love and make those big moves with those bold hearts, let's dive in. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Bold Hearts, Big Moves. I have with us Micheala Esplin, and I gotta say, guys, I get the coolest guests on this podcast. I just the energy I get to have from some of my guests is just fabulous because let me tell you, you're gonna love Micheala. If you guys love this podcast as much as I do, you're absolutely going to love Micheala because she comes today with a really, really powerful boundary that she learned from her son. And so I'm going to let her tell the story, but the idea of not shrinking to fit in, whole, I was like, yes, this needs to be on this podcast. Yes, yes, yes. So without further ado, Micheala, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you here. Very much so. Um, And like I said, we had a little bit of a chat before, which is always the case, audience, for a podcast. We always have a little bit of a conversation before because we want to bring to you the very best possible. But with what Micheala was telling me, I was getting all kinds of chills and just the whole holy grail of this is good stuff. So, Micheala, tell us a little bit about you for sure. And like definitely let's talk about this story with your son because that was a big deal.
Yes, yeah, I'm really excited to share it. So a little bit about me. I am a wife. I am a mom of three kids. My oldest son, he's 12. I've got a 10-year-old girl and then a 6-year-old boy. And so I'm in this new season of life where they're all at school and it's great. But now my oldest is going to be homeschooled this next year. So it feels like I'm going backwards a little bit, but we're both excited about it. So we'll see how it goes. But I am a prosperity coach. So I help entrepreneurs hack into their personal prosperity. And I have had a physical product-based business for a few years. And so I've kind of been doing this pivot the last few months and really just finding that alignment. And so I'll share my story. And I do have my son's permission to share this, but I'll start kind of in my childhood and give a little bit of a background there. So I have always been very, very driven, very ambitious, very achievement oriented. And I'm the oldest in my family. I'm the oldest grandchild on my mom's side. And so I felt this pressure to always be almost perfect, be the good example for my cousins and my siblings. And I went through, my adolescent years just putting a lot of this pressure on myself. And I would achieve a lot of things. And I recognized I started learning that I got a lot of praise, when I achieved things. And so it kind of just started this cycle that I became stuck in with achievement and praise and feeling like I needed to prove my worth through achieving these things. And it ended up, getting to the point where I kind of broke and I didn't handle failure very well at all. When I felt like I didn't get the praise and the recognition or attention when I did achieve things, then I felt very unseen, unloved, not worthy, not good enough. And so I was stuck in this cycle. Well, fast forward and I get married and then I have my first baby. and it's my son. His name's Ashton. And we didn't know beforehand, but after he was born, we found out that he was born with a very, very rare syndrome. There are about 50 cases in the world at the time he was born. And it kind of rocked my world a little bit. Um,
Makes
and I
sense.
became, yeah,
Yeah.
I became like mildly obsessed with confidence because as a new mom of this child that I was not expecting, to have this problem, um, his syndrome like caused physical abnormalities. And so I think he's going to have two surgeries this year, which will be his 12th and 13th, I believe. And
Oh,
and it caused hearing loss. And so he had a hearing aid. And so I'm seeing these, things that look different from what the world classifies as normal, right? And I am just terrified of this world that he's going to grow up in. Is he going to be teased? Is he going to be bullied? Like, how do I instill this confidence in him at a young age so that he is rooted in who he is, so that he doesn't, repeat almost these same cycles that I had been in, of feeling like I needed to prove my worth. And and so I kind of was obsessed with that idea. And I did a lot of research, a lot of studying, and even asking these, like older ladies in my neighborhood and in my church congregation who had raised, kids and they're now in adulthood. And I looked at them and I thought, okay, they must know what they're doing because, they're seasoned mothers. And of course they know exactly what to do. And I just remember
yeah.
asking, and
Been
I'm
there.
like, that's your answer? Like, that's not a good answer. And come to find out, no one knows what they're doing as a parent. We're all
Yeah.
thinking, we're all just trying
Yeah.
to figure it out.
Hmm.
but but as a new, 20, I was 22, I think, when I had him. And so I'm young and naive and think everyone else has
Who
it together.
knows? Right, right, right. Got it.
And
Been there.
so I just had these unsatisfactory answers. And I'm like, okay, I guess I'll just have to do the best I can, right? Which every parent eventually realizes that, okay, we'll just do the best we can. And so fast forward a few years, and my son is 9 years old. And I haven't figured out the key to confidence, nothing like magical. I'm just trying to do the best I can. And he's 9 years old and he comes home from school and he asks my husband and me a question. And it I was a little nervous. We hadn't hid his syndrome, his condition from him, but he was just young. We hadn't really ever had the conversation with him. And so he came home and he's like, well, I noticed today, like, I'm a little different than my friends, than the other kids at school. I have a hearing aid. I've had all these surgeries. Like, other kids haven't really had that. So why am I different? And so we sat him down and we just said, this is, you were born with this. This is how God made you. This is what it caused. It just made it so that your ears, can't hear. And so that's why you have a hearing aid and, these different things. And Ashton is a very, very, very inquisitive, curious child, and he's always asking questions. And so his response shocked me. He simply said, wow, I'm blessed by God. And that was it. And
Oh.
that was such a tender moment for me, but it really, really was a pivotal moment for me in my journey of this, trying to find confidence, trying to be rooted in something other than that, chasing external validation. And this was such a pivotal moment for me when I realized, okay, he's the one teaching me. I've been trying to figure out ways to teach him for the past 9 years of his life. And actually, he had all the answers already. I didn't have to worry about it. And I realized it was because he knew three things. First, he knew who he was. Second, he knew who God was to him. And this was something, just a little bit of a tangent. This was something that I was struggling with because to me, I had these limiting beliefs, not only about
Yeah.
myself, but about God, which I didn't even know was a thing until a few years ago. And one of those was, that God blesses others more than he does me, or he favors others more
I
than me.
used to think that too. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really hard one. And that was
Yeah.
something I discovered that I actually believed. And so seeing Ashton, he didn't have that perspective. He going into the third thing that he taught me was that he knew that he was divinely designed. He knew that God had a unique mission and purpose for him. And it wasn't this punishment, right? He wasn't punishing Ashton. Ashton didn't look at this as like, oh, God didn't give me X, Y, and Z. Like right, he made me different and I'm less than. He didn't have that perspective. It was, wow, I'm so blessed. I'm so blessed that God has this divine design, that
Yes.
he has this plan for me, right? Like it was totally different than what I had been struggling with. And so those are the three things that I learned about confidence in that moment. And that led me on this journey of really discovering what prosperity is. And that's, what got me into what I do now. And so he just really taught me that we don't need to chase that external validation in order to prove who we are, to prove
Yep.
our worth, right? Ashton is rooted in his divine identity, in who God created him to be, in his divine design.
I love that. And man, what just from the mouth of babes, like, oh my gosh. And I have to say, like, what a powerful spirit that little guy of yours has got because like I'm sitting here thinking of the time when Christ was, teaching at the temple at 12 years old, right? Not too much older than what your little guy was. And, he's like, why on earth have you sought me so? Did you not know I'd be doing my father's business? And I guarantee his mom was probably like, what? Like, no, I didn't think that. Right? Like, why would I? Right? But it's such a beautiful thing to see like how much we can learn from a child. Somebody that's so innocent and so pure.
Mhm.
And what a great perspective. Because, I think especially I want to say especially in the female entrepreneur and business owner community that I have to prove it is
Mhm.
such a loud voice,
Yeah, and
you know?
shrinking yourself,
Yeah.
like playing small, right?
Mm-hmm.
Playing small, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And playing small or shrinking yourself because, we've had the message we're too much or too much or
Mhm.
too this or too that, right? And, you know, and it can be from really well-meaning people, right? This is why we've got to really pay attention to what we're saying, right? But wow, just wow, I won't shrink to fit in, you
Yeah, and
know?
I love the example even that you shared of Christ teaching at 12 years old, because that's what happens when we have that boundary, when we refuse to play small, when we refuse to, shrink in order to fit in. Christ wasn't chasing that external validation,
No,
right? He wasn't like, okay, what are others going to think? Like, where should I be? Where is society telling me that I should be? Um, he wasn't thinking that way.
no.
And because he wasn't thinking that way, he was able to share what he needed. He was in the right place at the right time, right? He was where he needed to be. And he was able to share what those people needed to hear and what he needed to share. And that's what happens. That's the difference. And looking at Ashton, in his example, um, yeah, he wasn't preoccupied with feeling like he needed to prove himself or prove his worth. He instantly recognized that. He knew who God he knew who God was to him, and he can just be confident in that.
Hmm. I love that. Okay, I gotta say, like, as a couple of things here, right? Like, we don't have to validate that or find external validation. We don't have to prove it. There's one time in the scriptures too, I listened to, well, I should say, I know about this time when Christ was, he was teaching the people. and they came into him and they're like, hey, we're going to make you king if you do XYZ for us, right?
Mhm.
And they left him because even though he gave them something so much better, they were like, what? Like, you're not going to make our lives super easy. Like, you're not going to do all this stuff for us. Well, what if, like, we were fools to think XYZ, and they left him. And I, it was such a tender moment. Like, my heart kind of hurt for the Savior for just a minute because he turned to Peter and he says, will you leave me too? Right? And just that, oh,
Mhm.
I love what Peter said, right? Just that it gave the Lord just a little bit of reassurance that remember, you're the Christ,
Mhm. I know who you
right?
are.
I
Yeah.
know who you are. Like you have the words of
Mhm.
salvation. Like where else would we go?
Yeah.
Right? But I have to say, I think even if Peter did like leave, like I can't see Peter doing it, but even if he did, that would have hurt Christ.
Mhm.
But he still wouldn't have changed who he was,
Yeah.
you know? Because there were still so many others that were relying on him throughout all generations of time, throughout all perspectives, right? Still relying on him.
Yeah. And it really is about that perspective, right? It's so hard when you're dealing with, the reality of maybe friends or family leaving when you,
Mm,
because people don't like being uncomfortable. They don't,
nope.
it can be really uncomfortable when somebody
Yeah.
decides, hey, I'm going to be rooted in this confidence in my, divine identity, my divine design. I am choosing to do that. I'm choosing to grow. And people can feel very uncomfortable with that. And so they almost try to pull you back, right? So they try to get you to shrink
Hmm.
yourself. No, 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 stay, fit in, fit in. I don't want you, it's very uncomfortable for you to leave and go do that. And I love this concept of like holy boldness with that, where it's like, no, I'm not, it's not selfish.
It's not
It's not a
mean.
bad thing. Yeah. It's not
Yeah.
mean, not spiteful. It's not anything like that. This is who we're meant to be, and so
Hmm.
having that boldness. There's another story that comes up for me with Christ, and it's the story of him being tempted. And when
I
you were
love this
talking
story.
when you were talking about
Yes.
Peter, it reminds me of that yes, it can hurt to deal with the reality of people maybe leaving, right? Because they're
Yes.
uncomfortable, it's uncomfortable. But then this is why it's so fascinating to me that this is one of Satan's greatest tactics. And you see it over and over and over again in the
Yeah.
scriptures, that he's always trying to get people to prove who they are, and he did it with the
Mm,
Savior.
yes.
He did it with the
Yes.
Savior. He's like, prove who you are, right? Prove that you're
Hmm.
powerful enough. And I think so. When I hear that story, for me, it comes off as so almost like childish. Like, would Christ really be tempted with that? Like, that just seems so beneath him, right? It seems, it just doesn't seem like anything that's really powerful. It's like, why did Satan choose to tempt him with that? And yet, when we look at it, it's because it actually is so powerful. When we're looking at it from
Hmm.
the outside, we can see it for what it is, right? We're like, oh yeah, that's childish, that's immature, whatever. It's so ego-centered. But there's
What
a
do we
reason.
fall from? Yes.
There's a reason that
Hmm.
he uses that over and over, because it is so easy. It's so easy to get caught up in that.
Absolutely.
And and when we are caught up in that, that is when we actually do shrink.
Hmm.
We shrink, we stay stagnant, and that is the opposite of who we are created to be. It's the opposite. We are
Right.
created to grow. We have divine potential. And so being stuck, being stagnant, being stuck in the self-doubt and the cycle of proving your worth and all of these things, like that actually is a genius tactic, even though it doesn't maybe
An evil
Seem like
genius,
it.
like
Yeah,
we'll go for the evil
exactly.
genius. But
Exactly.
you're right. You're so right. That is exactly what he tries to get us to do, is to say, "Oh, prove your worth. Prove that you are who you say you are. Prove it." And the other side to that is, I would say, I love what the Lord did is he used truth for every single one. Bread, men doesn't live by bread alone. Like,
Hmm.
the idea of me proving my worth to you doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
That's what he did. And and I'll tell you, like, once I figured that piece out, I was like, oh, so what happens when I'm tempted? Now, this is powerful stuff. What happens when I'm tempted if I simply state who I am? Holy cow. It was the most powerful thing I think I've ever done. Like, if you want, if you know you're having a spiritual attack,
Mhm.
if you know it, and you simply say, this is who I am. This is who I am in Christ. This is who I know I am to be. This is who I know God created me to be. And I refuse to be what you think I should be.
Mhm.
Refuse, right? Like, what a powerful boundary. And I will tell you, like, man, do they run in fear when that happens. They shrink. And this is a really interesting relationship dynamic that you're even bringing apart around here, is this I won't shrink to fit in. Well, we talk about, like, the hooks and stuff like people put inside of us and tear us to pull us into their reality and what they think and their stories and that prove it, prove it, prove it thing, right? But if we have to shrink in order for someone else to stand up, what, why? Why? Right? Why is it that that person believes that they have to be the only one to shine, that you can't shine too? Why
Mhm.
is it that way? And that's not that's not the theory of Christ,
Mm-mm.
you know? He shines so that we can, right?
Yeah, it's such a selfless thing, and the other is based in ego.
In
It's
ego,
ego and it's
exactly.
and comparison, which is also based in ego. But that's the trap that is so easy to fall into, is the comparison.
Yes. Yes. And this is what's cool. I talk about boundaries being the most loving,
Mhm.
most anchored thing in love, most anchored thing in truth, right? And this is exactly why, is because when we refuse to shrink, that's what a boundary is. It, like, keeps you bright. It keeps you shining brighter and brighter and brighter because you know who you are, and you're just like, I don't need to validate it. I don't need to prove it. I don't need to do this, right? And if somebody demands that you shrink and you refuse to do that because you know who you are and you love that person, it's an opportunity for someone that is stuck in ego to step out. Whether they choose it or not, that's up to them. You can't make choices for them, but you can absolutely open the door and the opportunity by being who you are, by being who God created you to be, just like your little guy, and being like, I'm so grateful for that person, right?
Yeah. And that's what he did for me, my son.
Hmm.
I love that you phrase it that way, that it's creating an opportunity, it's inviting others to do the same. And and it's their choice or not, but that's what it did for me, right? It
Hmm.
showed me, because it sheds light on it. It's like, actually, there's a better way, and it can look like this. And so when you can realize that, and like, oh my goodness, I don't have to stay stuck in these super unhealthy things that I'm that I'm like perpetuating over and over and over again. There's a
Hmm.
better way. And this is what it can look like because you showed me by example. Like, it's so powerful. And so I love
Yeah.
that you bring that up, that when we do that, when we claim that light and that, birthright and like that identity, we stand confident in that, yes, it is going to make people uncomfortable because
Yes.
it's not the norm, right? And and so it's going to cause that those feelings of being uncomfortable and like, I don't know, society doesn't tell us to do that. And so is that okay? But it really opens up the door for others to do the same. And how powerful is that? The more people do that, the more impact everybody makes on the world around them and
Hmm.
for good, and
Yes.
so it's such a
Yes.
powerful ripple effect.
And you mentioned something here too, like the idea of like, well, that's not the definition of society. So there's another boundary here, right? That I love to implement when I'm kind of at that crossroads of like, oh, which side do I choose? Like which way is going to build me? And I have to come back to this question of who's my God, right? Because society, even though it does have some truth, God has all truth,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I don't want to live by society standards. I like, no, thank you. No, thank you. I've done that. It's not fun. It is so not fun. But when I live by God's standards and like, it's so much more simple. And this is what's cool about it is I've learned through boundaries and through God and through living that way that healing, confidence is simple, right? And so like it's cool too. Like I've been on like a health journey recently too. And like there's all of this chatter when it comes to health and like your physical health and stuff like that. And I've heard it all. But I'll tell you something. Somebody just came to me a couple days ago and we were just chatting. I'm like, "Oh, this is so simple." And I was like, "Okay, this is it, right?" Because this is what's cool about it. God is all about simplifying,
Mm-hmm.
cleaning off the chatter, cleaning off all of what society says, cleaning off all of the stuff that people have thrown at you, right? And I like to say, like, you're not the underside of a cafe table. Like, people don't need to throw their gum at you. Right? It doesn't need to stick. And you are something simple, but so pure, and purity is simple.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I
Oh yeah.
love that.
I really love that. And that is so evident in the story about Ashton that, he's usually very curious and asking lots of questions. And it was just his response was simple, right?
Hmm.
It was rooted in the truth. Wow, I'm blessed by God. That's it. And Christ, he was all about simplicity, parables. Like they're very simple, but we as humans, we try to overcomplicate everything. And that's
Yeah.
also one of Satan's tactics is like, let's make this super complicated because the more I can layer this, there's the truth there, but now I'm going to add all these layers and make it complicated. And it's so hard for us. Like we almost think, in fact, I was just sharing this story yesterday with my kids. We were talking about the children of Israel and the vipers, right? Like the serpent, and all they had to do was look and live.
Yeah, so
Right?
so simple.
That's all they had to do.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's too simple. It's like if we have these answers and they're just too simple, we want it to be more complicated because and that's another trap that we
Yeah.
can fall into is no, my problems are too complicated uh, for an answer as simple as that. Like my complicated problems, my complicated, unique situation requires a more complex answer.
Hmm.
And again, it's so rooted in ego, right? That
It
it's like,
is.
oh no,
Yeah.
my situation is more complicated than that. I'm more unique than that. And so then we want the complicated answers and solutions and all of that when really it can be so simple. Like it's a
Absolutely.
choice.
And I think a lot of that comes back to like what do we actually think truth is?
Mm.
Like what do we actually think truth is? Do we think that truth is something that's super complicated, super hard to
Mhm.
get to? And in my personal experience, it's always been something so much more simple
Mhm.
than that. And that's what's awesome about this is making the simple decision, right? To be grateful for who we are. Be grateful for ourselves, right? Like I talk about boundaries being rooted in love and truth. And recently I've kind of had that like holy about love and truth. And like there's an acronym here. And like we have love being like listening to God, listen like that listening boundary, like what is true, what is not true, right? Listening to ourselves and our thoughts,
Mhm.
owning those pieces of ourselves, um, values, right? And embodying all of that. Like that's literally what it comes down to. And it's like really simplifying that. That's born of love. And truth, that's trusting, respect, understanding. I'm trying to think what was the other T. Uh, trust, trusting. Maybe I said trust already. Trusting God, respect, understanding. I'd have to go look and see what the other true T is. Be waiting for that episode, guys. And honor. That's that's what it is. And if you think about it, like these really are a lot of the building blocks of love and truth. And it's just simple. Even though I can't remember the other T, but it's all good. We'll get it. We'll get it. It's all good. Um, but I love this concept, that we can simplify.
Mhm.
We don't have to shrink, but simplification is is in a way that purification process. If you think about gold, when they mine it, it's got all kinds of other things inside of it. But when they heat it up, all of the other stuff falls off of it, and what is left is that pure gold, right? They actually simplify the makeup of this very valuable thing. They don't overcomplicate it. They just simplify it. And so sometimes life comes with us with a lot of heat, but that heat is just a, an example of one way that we are going to be purified and simplified even more. And what I love about this is absolutely a prosperity thing. And how many of us business owners want more prosperity,
Mhm.
right? For all of the things, the cars, the houses, the vacations, and also like the good work we get to do. Because if you're listening to this podcast, you probably also know that your business is more than just a business, it's a calling, right? You're actually doing something to support humanity and your ideal client and to make life so much better. That's what a business is, for crying out loud, right? So you're listening to this, and if you're feeling frustrated, and I'd love for you to talk to this too, like if you're feeling frustrated about not hitting those goals, right? What another way to be tempted to shrink, to prove it,
Mhm.
right? How do we simplify?
I love that. And I love that you talk about like gold and just the refining process and everything, because the phrase that keeps coming to my mind is stripping away. And
Mm,
and I think that's what it is when we simplify. We're stripping all of the other stuff away and just getting to, the pure form of it, the root. And so I think so these seven laws of prosperity that I found, um, they come from scriptures. They come from, these amazing uh, gurus and people who have just researched this. And I love that you talk about, what society teaches and what God's way is with truth and the simplification, because prosperity, if you Google it, is financial success. And how rooted in ego and like achievement, right? That's like completely just achievement based. And it's so superficial. And
hmm
God's way of prosperity actually means to go forward with hope. If you look at the root word prosper in Latin, it's literally to go forward with hope. And so it is so simple. Like how
Yeah.
that's so much more simple
Yeah, way more
than
simple.
having to achieve. And what does financial success even mean, right? Like it's so it just doesn't even have anyway like an actual meaning with it,
Well,
right?
I actually love that. Like going forward with hope, I think it actually does mean that with financial success.
Yes, it's
Going
part of
forward
it.
with, yes, because here's
Yes.
the thing. Here's the thing. If you are consistently going forward with hope, you're not doubting
Mhm.
that the reward comes back.
Yes. Yes. And that's the thing. And that's what I find so often with world versus godly stuff is that it focuses on this one aspect. Like you said earlier, there's always truth mixed in there.
Mm-hmm.
And so the financial success piece is a part of prosperity. It is part of the outcome of God's way of prosperity. You will be blessed in all aspects of life, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's not the only piece. It's one tiny little piece. And
Mm-hmm.
there are so many other more important pieces. And so when we can just get down to the basics of it, am I rooted in my identity? Am I confident that I have that I was intentionally designed, that I have, a unique mission and purpose? And am I
Mm-hmm.
aligned with that?
Mm-hmm.
And in business too, like you said, business is about impact. And so when we are aligned with that impact that we can make, right? Am I being obedient to these laws? Because then the blessings will come from that. Am I trusting and surrendering and allowing God's will to prevail? And that goes back to, again, Ashton. I learned that from him. Like he trusted that God had a plan for him, that he was intentionally designed. Um, and there's this concept of divine economics as one of the laws. And I love it so much. It encompasses stewardship, which is stewardship over our physical bodies, stewardship over our mental health, like everything, stewardship over our finances and whatever blessings that God
Mm-hmm.
has given you. And living in a way that is generous and that it's not self-serving. It's okay. I am being a good steward over what God has given me, these resources, whatever they are, and I'm using them to bless the lives of others. And then gratitude. And I think I'm missing, let's see, I'm like trying to count them all now to see if I see how many I got. And then gratitude. And that to me, those are all very simple things.
Yeah.
They are. And it's not, none of them are based on what you're doing or achieving.
Yeah.
It's how you're living
Yeah.
and the truths that you are refusing to, given, like refusing to compromise on.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. And that's where I think a lot of that comes back down to the boundary is we just don't refuse. We don't refuse. We refuse to compromise
Yeah.
on who we are, right? And that's beautiful. Oh, Michaela, thank you so much for coming. Like, what a great conversation. And, yeah, like, let's not shrink. Let's like actually stand out in our boldness and realize that that is glory to God.
Mhm.
Like, glory be to God for that. Where can people find you if they're looking for help?
So they can find me. I'm on Instagram under simply.striving. I am on Facebook, Micheala Esplin over there. And then I also have a podcast called Prove It that they can come and listen to.
I love it. I love it. All right, guys. Thanks so much. We will have Michaela back again for sure, because this was a good combo. And until next time, we'll see you soon, guys. Bye.
All right, Boundary Boss Babes. I'm super excited that you tuned in with me today. Make sure you tune in again next week as we chat about more Boundary Boss Babe topics. We're going to get into so many other things about how to set boundaries with your business, how to set boundaries with your relationships, so you can truly have the time, the money, and the flexibility that you are seeking. So tune in next week. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast. Let your other Boss Babe friends know about it. And also, if you've got any questions, make sure you submit them into the podcast by clicking on the Send Us a Text message at the bottom of the podcast description. I look forward to seeing you guys next week. See you later, Boss Babes.